As a kid, did you ever dream of becoming a professional race car driver, but maybe it was too expensive or always seemed out of reach? Here at Racing Prodigy, it is our mission to take those dreams and make them a reality. You too can be just like Jeff Gordon, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, some of the greatest drivers ever, and be a part of a world where real-life racing and motorsport opportunities are available to everyone. That world is now here. Here at Racing Prodigy, we provide real-world racing opportunities to those with grit and skill who may otherwise never be discovered. Thanks to esports competition, a new insight has been found. The skill set of virtual racing transfers to real race cars and tracks. Gamers and sim racers have proven that they can race real race cars against the professionals and win. It's now time for the world's first E2 Real Sports League, taking esports competitors to real-life racing competitions. Prodigy Racing League is here to offer aspiring real-world race car drivers the opportunity to compete across multiple gaming platforms to earn titles and coveted Prodigy passes. These golden tickets of motorsports allow you access to trips that are fully paid for you to train, learn, and even compete at Prodigy Week, our real-world racing academy held at Atlanta Motorsports Park in November. It is our goal and vision to draft the first class of racers from those who compete at Prodigy Week to fill the grid for our inaugural series to debut in 2024. We can only achieve our vision together, so join us today to test your skills, earn your spot at Prodigy Week, and enjoy the thrill of racing. Racing Prodigy, where dreams become a reality.
Yesterday, 20 drivers took the first step to a Prodigy Pass, an invitation 50 days from today to land at the Atlanta Motorsports Park and to parlay virtual talent into the real world. Today, in the Prodigy Racing League Race Room Tatuus F4 Cup, it's time to finalize the 5th driver heading to Prodigy Week. Hello everyone, my name is Arjuna Kankipati once again alongside Joey Tebben. Joey, it was 2 exciting semi-finals yesterday, but I think, boy, are we in for a blockbuster of a final 30 minutes here today.
Perfect word, blockbuster, because we had 2 shows of dominance yesterday. Marco Page in race number 2, Michael Romanidis in race number 1. Both of them ran away from the field. They were rarely touched by their competitors, but now they've got to face each other tonight, and they've got everybody who couldn't beat them yesterday trying to one-up them again today. It's a combination of craziness and chaos, and just like we saw in the previous event, it's probably going to end in more chaos than we expect.
If you're joining us for the very first time, let's briefly talk about what all this is about. I kind of explained it in the intro, but let's break it down just a little bit more. The Prodigy Racing League, the product of Racing Prodigy, an organization trying to bring sim racers into the real world to give opportunities to those that maybe would not get them, and it starts with a public time attack qualifier. Everyone is invited to compete, and it's the fastest 40 that, Joey, we saw yesterday head into 2 semi-final races.
And then they get winnowed down even more, if that's a word I can use. 2 semifinals, top 10 from each of them progressed into the final today. It was a lot of drama based on some of the drivers on the cut line yesterday. Some drivers got penalties that dropped them out of the positions on the track. Some drivers raced their way up from the back into the top 10, but now they all meet each other once more in one field here for the final 30 minutes of racing in Formula 4 machinery at Hockenheim. It's only going to be a 5-minute longer race than they dealt with yesterday, but it's going to be a bigger grid, it's going to be a stronger grid, and it's going to be that much harder to win and win that Prodigy Pass at the end of today.
The great thing as well is there's not just the Prodigy Pass on the line, but some hardware courtesy of our partners. A Grid Porsche 911 RSR Sim Racing steering wheel goes to our winner today. And of course, some hardware courtesy of our friends at Aztec Sim Sports that are helping to make all of this coverage possible. A big thanks goes to them who have been providing all of their support. The Invicta quick release adapter enables sim racers to easily mount wheels that they already own to the Invicta Forte or La Prima direct drive wheelbases from Aztec Sim Sport. Integrated power and data allows for hassle-free connectivity between the wheel and the wheelbase. We'd also like to thank SimLab and Grid. Right now, you can order their exceptional products for sim racers seeking the utmost quality. SimLab's P1X Sim Racing Cockpit has become the gold standard in the industry, and Grid by SimLab has a premium line of official Porsche licensed products available. Of course, our winner today will walk away with their Grid by SimLab Porsche 911 RSR Sim Racing steering wheel. That's all very, very exciting. What does a Prodigy Pass mean, though? It's an invitation to Prodigy Week. Let's learn a little bit more about what that's going to entail.
What should you expect at Prodigy Week? Well, as a Prodigy Pass recipient, lots of seat time. We're going to put you on a skid pad, autocross course, kart track, on a sim using SimLab, Grid, and Aztec Sim Sports equipment. But most of your seat time will be in the Radical SR1 race car on the main track at Atlanta Motorsports Park. Now, you'll have a pro coach review onboard video and data. You'll work with PitFit Training, who trains IndyCar and NASCAR drivers. You'll work with Dr. Nick Molinaro, who helps pro athletes perform under pressure. You'll be interviewed, but don't worry, you'll get media training by DKC, and we're going to live stream it all on Racing Prodigy's YouTube channel with behind-the-scenes look into how it all goes down. We're going to open it all up, share setup information, data, and more, because we're here to provide access and opportunity.
It's the full gamut. It's everything that it takes to be a racing driver. That's what the drivers are all going to be going through. And of course, big plans for Racing Prodigy. The goal being a second Prodigy Week with even more winners, and then hopefully a Prodigy draft, selecting from 50 drivers who competed in the Prodigy Week to get down to those that will compete out there in the real world and be paid to do so. Joey, that sounds like the dream, and already 4 drivers are heading to Atlanta in 50 days' time.
That's correct. Gustavo Ariel won the first event we did many, many weeks ago. Then it was Lawrence Beertons who won on SK Racing with the karts. Then just a couple of weeks ago, back on iRacing in the Formula 1600s at Okayama, it was Kane Halliburton who ended up coming away with the Prodigy Pass from that one. David Dalton Jr. was the first draft pick a few days ago. Actually, he's fresh off the presses, and now we're going to make number 5 today, and many, many more to come in the future. Could be anybody at home. I believe the qualifying is, or the time attack rather, is up right now for the next event on R Factor 2, so you could be one of those 50 people who gets drawn in a couple of weeks' time.
And so you should make sure you head to racingprodigy.com. If you're watching on the Racing Prodigy YouTube, you should also hit subscribe, because already David Dalton Jr. has been selected by our Prodigy Search Selection Show, and we're going to have another 10 drivers from that previous iRacing Formula 1600 competition form the second Prodigy Search Selection Show, and then a third selection show will happen with the drivers from this race room and the R Factor tournaments upcoming, all in the build-up to the end of October and a trip to Atlanta, and there'll be plenty of coverage on Racing Prodigy social media as we build up to that as well. Let's talk about the grid, Joey, because one thing that was important for the drivers yesterday was, yes, finishing inside of the top 10, but also going as quickly as possible, because the finishing position of each semi-finalist sets the row that they start on, and then the ordering on that row, so which semi-finalist is going to start in front of the other is determined by who has the fastest race lap. So you can't just sit back and bide your time. You had to actually be thinking proactively as well.
Exactly, and it's a bigger difference than in some previous events. In the previous event we did on iRacing at Okayama, that was a rolling start, so whether you started on the inside or the outside, it was important. You wanted to be on the inside, but it wasn't that important. Here, it's a standing start. We're on the F1 grid at Hockenheim. There's a stagger. There's about 100 feet of difference to whether you're starting on the inside or the outside. So everybody does want to be on that little bit further ahead. Even if you're starting at the back of the field, if you're starting in the middle of the field, every little bit of position you can get is going to help you once this race comes to the start in a couple of minutes' time.
And one thing we saw yesterday, both semifinals, the pole position driver, the 1 and 2 in time attack qualifiers, were able to dominate and lead basically every lap and look comfortable. It's not going to be the case today, but Marco Page in that second semi-final went faster than Michael Romanidis, so he will line up on the technically outside, but in front on that run in towards turn number 1. The drivers are out there for practice. They've got about 3 minutes left to go. Joey, 30 minutes today. Only 5 minutes more than we saw yesterday means not much more in terms of the tire wear to deal with, but let's be real, tire wear wasn't something we were too concerned about. Instead, it was all about the brake bias and how you were handling it, mainly into that hairpin.
Exactly. Tire wear, basically non-existent. It's kind of like driving on a wooden tire. It's like driving on a rock, but losing the tires from the car entirely, breaking your suspension, that's what kind of dissolved many drivers' chances yesterday. There was a little bit of contact, especially in race 2. You're going to have to be even more careful in this final because everybody's going to be that much more aggressive. Now that there's actually prizes on the line for the top 3 and that Prodigy pass for the winner, you're going to see people getting that much more aggressive, and you have to balance that aggression with not hitting your competitors because that can end your own day and end their day very, very quickly. So you see 2 drivers on our screen right now getting some wheel-to-wheel practice out of the way in the dying seconds of practice, and that'll help just as much once we go green in about 2 minutes.
I guess I got a bit of a question for you. This is every driver for themselves. There's no doubt about that. But there are a couple of team alliances that we've got in there. You've got some Door Esports drivers, a couple of Gadachain Ballas Esports drivers as well. But then Ottaviani, Romanidis, Page, they all represent distinct entities. Coanda, Esport, Mercedes, AMG, Petronas, and Veloce. How important will it be in a race like this where draft is going to be important, Joey, to maybe have someone that you can work with?
I don't think it'll be important at all, to be honest. I think everybody is truly fighting for themselves today. Everybody on your screen there, some of them may be communicating with each other, but I don't think they are. I think everybody is driving their own race. They're not thinking about some alliances they may have in some other series and some other simulator. They all want those prizes for the top 3. They all want that Prodigy pass.
See some drivers in virtual reality as well. It's always interesting to see the different perspectives, and of course some of them will be on single monitors, ultra wides, and triple screens. Here's how they'll line up. Let's not forget that the rows determined by semi-final finishing positions, and then the lineup itself on which side of the grid fastest laps in the race, and that's the delta that you're going to be looking at. Marco Page and Michael Romanidis, they're on the front row. They're the 2 that dominated their semifinals yesterday, but behind, Alessandro Ottaviani and Lucas Muller had 2 distinctly different semifinals, one having to be a lot more active than the other. Jan van der Heide, quicker than Adam Pinches, while Leonard Krippner and then Florian Hassel will share row number 4. Richard Lopez, Luciano Whitford, they're through the top 10, and those drivers that you would think were comfortable to hope to stay in the lead pack. Those behind, yes, may be quick, but have to hope they don't get detached in the early stages. Alex Mosen, Gasper Mrak, Ilya Drovasekov, Ivan Fornes, Matt Caruana, Kilian Guit, Jonas Gerhardt, Leonard Goetze, Maximilian Lorenz, and Istvan Tietz will round out the field of 20 drivers that roll out with the sight set on the checkered flag, and Joey winning the Prodigy Pass.
And it could be any one of those 20 drivers. It isn't necessarily going to be the top 2. I hinted at this in the intro, but if you were here with us for the previous event at Okayama, there were 2 dominant winners of the 2 semifinals back then. Neither of them ended up winning the Prodigy Pass. They ended up spun around deeper in the field because they made contact. So it's not guaranteed to be Marco Page or Michael Romanidis, but I could give it a pretty high chance that it'll be one of them. I think they'll likely learn from the previous event, maybe be a little bit more conservative, and try and make sure they can stay on the track so they can continue their dominance.
One thing that I did note when we were chatting just before we started today, Joey, was the fact that Marco Page, fastest lap of the race yesterday, was a 1:43.296, the fastest lap of anybody. Matt Caruana, who had to battle in a semi-final to get to P8 with a 1:43.457. He's starting back in 15th spot with the fastest lap only a tenth and a half of what Page was able to do.
We saw Matt Caruana very aggressive in the previous event. We saw him aggressive in his semi-final yesterday, and he's definitely going to be moving his way forward. He's a driver who knows how to make passes. He's a driver who knows how to get aggressive early on. And yesterday, he did get a little bit lucky by getting an absolutely massive vacuum hose sucking him forward in the draft, but that could happen today, especially at the hairpin. If there's a pileup, look at Matt Caruana to be finding that hole, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the top 5 at the end of lap 1 somehow.
And in that Kimura Racing car, going to try and slice his way through in the early stages for sure. He's got Travis Sakoff in front of him, another driver that was able to do a 43.4. There are a few out of position. I think for the most part, everyone kind of lines up where they would expect and now has to hope the draft plays itself out. They get a brief warm-up session after the practice session. That's just because there's no qualifying to throw into the mix, but final moments for those drivers. We saw their webcams. Joey, they get what, couple of minutes now, couple of seconds before we go racing for 30 minutes. It's going to be tense for them, that's for sure.
It's tense for us, it's tense for them, it's tense for everybody at home because there's so much on the line here. Anytime you're racing for a big prize like this, anytime you're racing for that first step on the E2 Real Pipeline. I watched the Gran Turismo movie last night, literally, so I'm in a very relevant mood right now. And I can't wait to see who could be the next one. They're all ready to grid up now. All the practice comes to this.
Yeah, let's not forget that we have the former GT Academy winner, Nick McMillan, advising us behind the scenes. We've also got the likes of Glenn McKee, who has been taking the road to Mazda sort of pipeline from iRacing and succeeding running in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. It's been a lot of fun to see some of the support that we've had, and our Prodigy Search Selection show had 2 judges of very different ilk. One a sim racing influencer, Arava, and then the other soon-to-be full-time IndyCar driver in the form of Linus Lundqvist. They both talked plenty about what they wanted to see from the drivers. We are getting those final seconds. The lights are building. The drivers focus their attention towards those lights. The engines will rev for the Prodigy Racing League Race Room Tatuus Formula 4 Cup. 30 minutes of racing and the 5th Prodigy pass to be handed down. A great jump from Marco Page as we filter into turn number 1. Romanides instantly tucks into line behind. It's side by side for 4th on back, but it's 3rd and Ottaviani that now ducks to the inside of Romanides into the braking zone for the very first time they go. Page leading them. Romanides and Ottaviani squabbling for 2nd.
Spin in the background, Luciano Whitfoot, bad luck for him. He's kind of down for the count already, but the squabbling continues up front. There is Whitfoot in the 60. He's 7 seconds behind. His day might be over already, but now it's draft time. You saw the zipper coming into turn 1 of 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th slotting in, and now we dive down the back stretch. Huge drafts into the hairpin. The first big braking zone is going to test all these drivers.
Who's going to be the most aggressive, though, on these opening laps with the tires still coming up to temperature? Van der Heide are going to get in front of Lucas Muller, but outside of that, no one really going aggressive inside of the top 10. You can see on that left side of the screen, couple of +1s, couple of -1s, +2s and -2s as well, into the arena. Defensive moves from some, but it seems a little bit calmer than I think both of us were kind of anticipating, Joey.
Well, that's kind of the benefit of the standing start and of that stagger, and that's why it was so important to get those fastest laps in the semifinals yesterday. Everybody kind of zippered into line into turn 1. They were single file for basically the entirety of the first half of the lap. That helped them to keep it clean, but now we're in true race mode, we're in the rhythm, and for the next 28 minutes, it is going to be 100% attack for every driver in this field. The second they get on those straights, they're going to be looking for a move.
As we end that first lap, it is Marco Page who has led every single lap that he's run in this Prodigy Racing League Race Room Tatuus Formula 4 Cup so far. Ottaviani jumps in front of Romanides on the opening lap, and Van der Heide cycles in front of Muller. We jump on board with Adam Pinches, the Arnage competition driver, as we once again clatter over those curves at turn number 1. What we're not seeing is a breakaway like we saw in each of the semi-finals. It was 4 cars that were able to separate themselves. Right now the draft goes all the way back to 19th spot with excuse me, 18th spot with Whitford spinning around and Gerhardt now being in pit lane.
Adam Pinches looking very, very cool, calm, and collected on the camera there, as basically everybody in the field has, but he's got the draft of the top 5 ahead, hasn't really been able to use it. Lucas Muller's able to use it. He dives to the inside of Van der Heyde, and then Adam Pinches pinches his way onto the apex and almost makes contact with the 2 battling ahead.
They all cycle through safely though, and now having to cut back into line is Lucas Muller, the Door Esports driver, on the pursuit of Van der Heyde. The problem with moves like that is if you're side by side from corners on corners on corners, then you lose track of those in front, and Muller very cognizant of making sure that Van der Heyde cycles back the momentum and keeps into the draft. You can see the look of focus on both of their faces, one with the ultra wide, one with the triple monitor setup, it would seem, but both equally quick and up towards the front.
Bad news for fans of Jonas Gerhardt. Some technical issues ended up taking him out of the race before it even started, so unfortunate for him. Hopefully we'll see him in some further events in the future, because he made this final. He definitely deserved to keep racing for it, but it rages on up front, because Van der Heyde, he's going to be kind of fired up right now. The battling has begun. Him and Muller through the hairpin made a little bit of contact, and he's trying to run away right now. He's trying to get up to Michael Romanidis. He's trying to get up onto that battle for the podium, because he doesn't want to have to deal with another dive into the hairpin this lap.
No, definitely not. I think that will be one thing to definitely keep in mind. I said, by the way, for Pajic and Ottaviani, maybe, Team Alliance there, but I think both technically under the Veloce banner, so maybe they will have been preparing together and have an understanding as to maybe not battling at the start of this race and waiting for the final 10 minutes or so before they put everything on the line. Muller's onboard perspective shows that draft working in your favor as you just ever so slightly bring the car to the left into the braking zone. Going to be too far behind, you'd think, for any sort of desperation lunge, but these drivers, typical esports drivers in sim racing, calm, cool, and collected, at least right now.
Yeah, they're calm, cool, and collected until they get taken out. We saw a couple drivers somewhat angry yesterday. That's why we love the cameras, that we see the full range of emotions, and you see that everything really is on the line. They're frustrated when something bad happens, but right now they're in their element. They're riding in line, 100% pace, 100% push. They know what they're doing. This is where a sim racing driver excels. We'll start to see a little bit more tension, I think, in the final 5 minutes.
Oh, for sure. I think that, especially with the type of cars that we have, right, even though these are higher power than the Formula 1600 that we had on iRacing last time, we saw side by side on the final lap there. I get the sense we'll likely see the same. The Coanda esports driver of Michael Romanidis runs behind Alessandro Ottaviani. We take a look at both of them from their webcam perspectives. You can also just see how calm on the wheel Alessandro is trying to be, even though you're spending a lot of time clambering over curves. The one thing you're always trying to do is scrub as little speed as possible.
And you got Michael Romanidis 2 in the background as well. That mirror is always very interesting. It's like he's got a second driver behind him. Who is Michael Romanidis 2? We may never know, but he's just clambering over the curves through turn 1 and turn 2 every time. It's like he's falling down a staircase, but his face doesn't change. The guy on the bottom, I don't think I've seen Michael Romanidis' face change ever. We've seen his cam so many times. He's just always in the zone.
The 19-year-old from Greece has, of course, seen plenty of success in the likes of F1 esports. We've seen him compete on various iRacing competitions as well on occasion, and now linked up with Coanda. That's a pretty good staple to line yourself up behind. There a mistake from Van der Heyde as Muller slides on through. The Sancho Simsport driver gets passed by the Door Esports driver. Crucially now, though, the gap between third and fourth almost up to a full second.
Yeah, but it's stratifying out. Could we have our top 3 decided already? Well, if they start battling in the top 3, that's going to change very, very quickly. Running side by side is almost worth about negative 1 second. You lose a full second if you're battling. So I think once Pajic and Ottaviani and Romanidis start battling, which may not be for another 18 minutes or so, that's what Muller and Van der Heyde are hanging on to. That's how they hope they can get back into the draft. But for now, they can do nothing more than just keep pushing, qualifying pace right now, and hope that you can just barely stick at the edge of that draft, and hope that you'll be able to take advantage of a battle later.
Seeing some fighting just outside of your top 10, where Matt Caruana has been able to climb, as expected, 3 positions to 12, but still finding progress tough behind Drava Sakov, Fournet, Gotza. They're all finding themselves now fighting for 13th on back, and One thing that we did see plenty of yesterday was track limits being an issue, and once again, they're rearing their head. I look at my timing screen of the 19 cars that we have circulating, 6 of them set valid lap times last time around.
Better than yesterday. We're starting to get into maybe a third of the field running legitimate lap times every time, but also once you start making contact, that's when things go wrong. We saw Connor Fisk yesterday get disqualified from his semifinal because he added up, whether it was off tracks, whether it was contact, whether it was loss of control, to 30 incident points, and that's what gets you kicked out of this race. You get 1 incident point for an off track, you get 2 incident points for a loss of control, you get 4 incident points for car contact. It's similar to many other sims. 30 might seem like a lot, but it stacks up quickly.
Yeah, that is for sure. I'll just remind everyone that if you tried to qualify for this Prodigy Racing League Race Room Tatuus Formula 4 Cup, but you didn't make it into the top 40, but you were in the top 500 of the qualifiers, and there's still time to enter your entry into the Prodigy Search Selection Show. You submit a 1-minute video talking about why you feel like you deserve to head to the Atlanta Motorsports Park. The judges will whittle their way through the entries. We'll have a top 20 laid out for the race room and R Factor. 10 drivers from each of them plan to be taken to the selection show, and then another panel of judges will whittle that down to the 1 driver that makes their way into Prodigy Week. It's just recognizing, Joey, that we don't just have top esports drivers at the front like Alessandro Ottaviani, who got very loose there, but drivers that have only been sim racing in some cases for going on 3 weeks.
There's a wide variety of drivers in the field with different levels of experience. There's a wide variety of drivers in the field with different levels of life experience. We range from drivers who are just above the age limit to be allowed to race in this event, and we have drivers who have been racing for 20 plus years in all varieties of simulators. Van der Heyde started sim racing 7 and 8 years ago down there in 5th, and you see him getting absolutely attacked by Adam Pinches to the inside to the hairpin. Actually, that's Lucas Krippner, rather, on the inside of Adam Pinches. 2 very similar looking cars. They're side by side down this short straight, and then it's a flat out right-hander in turn 7. You don't want to be on the outside through there, but Pinches is going to have to make it work. Him and Krippner are still side by side.
Yeah, but the advantage of being on the outside of the hairpin, you can get onto the power earlier and it switches back to the inside, but if you haven't cleared yourself by here, that car that you're fighting with might still have the opportunity to force you wide. I tell you what though, Pinches knew exactly how much room to leave, and even though Krippner's still alongside, you feel as though the momentum still potentially on the side of the Hungarian. Into this final sector, fighting through what is a single file groove effectively. Whoa. Outside, big slide, Pinches holds on, but the field now loses 2 seconds to the top 5.
It's a pretty great save from Krippner, but I think he got some help from the rear end of Adam Pinches' car to actually save that, and now he's about to get swallowed up. He's got Florian Haase behind him, Marine, Mosen, and Caruana, who I mentioned was going to get aggressive. He's up 2 spots from the start, and I think we're going to see him take advantage of all of this checking up once he gets the chance.
In towards turn 2, are they going to fan out to the inside? No one really looking too defensive, and by equal measure, not looking too aggressive either. So we have a 3-car train at the front, I would argue. Remember, Marco Page was really talking when we talked to him yesterday. Half a second, that's where the draft is really giving its most effect. Lucas Muller, Van der Heyde, they are effectively 1.2 away, and in a little group of their own. Ottaviani, for the very first time, had a brief look to the inside, but the 3 that are at the front, if they choose to tango, may bring those behind back into the mix.
Ottaviani's been so close that I think he's starting to think, you know what, riding in line might actually be slower than actually going for this move. If I can make a dive, if I can clear Page, I could run away in the lead, and I could be even more comfortable than I am right now. So he's balancing all the variables there. All of these guys in this train behind, though, there's no variables to bounce here. You've got to make a pass. You've got to move forward when you've got everybody stuck together like this. Whether you're at the back of the train, Marak, whether you're second in the train, Krippner, trying to make this move again, you've got to start moving. And there's Caruana and Marie and Mosen side by side.
I think Caruana may have made a mistake, and now Mosen going to try and take advantage. Once again, outside, not where you want to be, and the contact sends Mosin off the track, and the German drops now behind Dravasekov, who lunges to the inside, penultimate corner, and more contact for Mosin, who finds even more trouble off the track.
Welcome to the German Drag Racing Championships, Alexis Mosin. He's still struggling to get back on the track, and I think there may be some damage on that car based on how I saw him recovering. We'll see how he handles turn 1. I think he's okay. I think he did get lucky, but he got absolutely bullied off the road there. It's very hard to run side by side through the final sector at Hockenheim. You do have a lot of ground to recover, but you lose a ton of time, and that's going to be probably the end of Mosin's chances in fighting for the top 10.
What did I say? Single file groove through that final sector earlier.
Pretty much.
Sometimes commentators are right. Krippner's going to go back on the offense of Pinches, who this time's looking to defend the inside. Is it going to allow Krippner the chance to go to the outside? No. He tries to jink back underneath, deep under the brakes, forces the Hungarian to leave room, and Krippner with the slide on exit allows the Hungarian the chance to defend.
That was a very good dummy from Lucas Krippner to switch back to the inside there. I don't know why we call that move the dummy, because it's very smart, and if he can be late enough on the brakes there, he's going to clear Pinches, but he's not late enough. Pinches dives it to the inside. Better exit for Krippner, though. He's going to have the inside for the next corner up over the top of the hill. It switches back again, though. He clambers over the curb, loses a ton of momentum, and suddenly Adam Pinches is back on the inside.
Matt Caruana had another wild ride off the track behind them, and as Pinches holds on to 6, they are fighting tooth and nail, not for any prizes, not for a Prodigy pass, for bragging rights right now. They are losing each other time, hand over fist. It's exactly what the top 5 want to see almost halfway through this race, coming to the end of yet another lap. They are in a very comfortable position to keep this between the 3 at the front.
See the changes of position on the side of your screen there. Matt Caruana, one more move on Marine through the final sector. He's up 6 spots from where he started. It's been a great drive forward for him, and he's looking to clear these guys and maybe bring down that 3.5-second gap up to the lead pack, who as well are continuing to ride in line. Marco Pajic on that last lap, a little bit quicker than Ottaviani. Also an invalid lap, though. An invalid lap for second place, a valid lap for Romanitas. So Romanitas in 3rd, riding in line, staying within the track limits, and honestly still just biding his time, riding in line, and waiting for Ottaviani to close this gap back down and start fighting with the leader.
Let's not forget, Marco Pajic Thursday had his full focus on another round of ESL R1, the premier tournament in sim racing, where he's competing with the Mercedes-AMG Petronas esports team for a prize pool totting up to $500,000, $2 million over the course of 2023. There is a lot of focus that he is having to put on that championship. Meanwhile, behind, a couple of cars sliding backwards. Leonard Krippner drops behind Florian Haase. Not sure if that was somewhat coordinated there between the two Door Esports drivers to maybe give Haase the chance to try and fight now with Pinches.
I don't know if it was coordinated between the teammates, but I do know that the door opened either way for Haase to get through, and I don't know, he's kind of a wild card in this pack. We haven't seen him be the driver who's been making the passes. He hasn't been the driver who's been getting at least very outwardly aggressive, but now he's got the chance to do so in that gray and white car right behind the teal machine of Adam Pinches. It's not the best exit out of the final corner for Haase, but look for him to have a chance in the back straight, and look for Caruana to maybe have a shot into turn 1. He's thinking about it.
Oh, but you can't be that aggressive with still 14 minutes to go. Caruana wisely backs out of that one, and as once again we really find ourselves hustling over the curbs on the outside of turn 1. He's onto the brakes. The Brit versus the German, trying to now just get the maximum slingshot. Caruana balances the edge of the car on the limit of traction, loses a bit of ground on corner exit, and Krippner, who got a much better run, is going to see himself close up to his teammate in front. Caruana has already, again, made up 6 positions. The problem is the poor finishing position on yesterday's semi-final has left him with just too much work to do.
Indeed, we do have to remember that Matt Caruana, one of those drivers in the field who's still only 17 years old. He's not been sim racing for very long. He's not been alive for very long, for that matter, comparatively. But he's one of those drivers who's really, even though he's not probably going to finish in the top 3, he's showing his skill. He's putting himself on the map, just like Henry Moore did in the event on iRacing a couple of weeks ago. They've got futures in sim racing. This is just the start.
And maybe a way to think about this as well is we talk about the search selection a little bit, right? And how some people will enter themselves for that. For Matt Caruana, he can make the claim that he's qualified for 3 of these time semi-finals. He missed the first iRacing tournament, joined us for the second, and is here as well for our first race room event. Whereas for Michael Romanidis, he can say, I've been to 3 of the semi-finals, made it to 2 finals as well. Versus some of the other drivers who bring slightly different stories. It's all like you said yesterday, Joey, about how you package it up and sort of sell yourself, much like a racing driver has to do in the real world.
Exactly. It's not just about being fast. How many times have we seen very fast drivers who couldn't do the marketability or couldn't do the business and selling themselves and getting sponsors? You've got a very large combination of things you need to do. All of that gets taught at Prodigy Week. You saw David Cook speaking about that a couple of minutes ago. It's very important that you get trained, you get media trained, you get business trained, you learn how to express yourself, and you learn how to be fast at the same time as well. Here's Florian Haase again in the draft. Pinches blocks all the way to the inside. He's going to force Florian to the outside here. He's going to think about a switchback into the tightest corner on the track, and he does it beautifully. Pinches, he pinched himself.
He got pickpocketed, and not just 1, but 2, because Krippner slides on through as well. It's the double door effect there, as the 2 Germans are able to take advantage. Caruana will be next up in line. And to what Joey is saying, again, there's so much that's going to go into Prodigy Week. Dr. Nick Molinaro going to be helping to try and help these drivers perform under pressure. And boy, are they under some pressure right now with the 2 door drivers at the front. They've got 5 seconds to close to the cars in front. Realistically, it's more like 7 to the leaders and 11 minutes with which to close. It is still Page, Ottaviani, Romanidis, 1, 2, and 3 at the front. They haven't started to fight just yet, Joey, as they start to tussle and tangle behind.
Got a wrestling match in the Hockenheim grass. Killian Guit and Mosen. That's an easy place to get interlocked if you're side by side through that first corner into the stadium section. You make that little bit of contact and you're both going to end up in the grass. So bad luck for both of those drivers. That's going to be the end of their days. But speaking of aggressive, it's all kicking off again in this pack. This is where all the action's been. Caruana's looking for another spot and trying to continue the fall of Adam Pinches.
Yep, and hoping that the 2 at the front could start to bring up the time just that little bit. Lucas Muller, Jan van der Heide have not really been successful in closing in the top 3. They've all been really consistent when they've had valid lap times in being around in that mid 1:43.5, just about where we'd expect them to be based on the speed that we saw yesterday. No moves really being offered into the hairpin, but now the opportunity to go around the outside. If Matt Caruana can get a good exit off the corner, could Pinches lose another?
Pinches has, I think, been outwardly feeling the pressure more than anybody else. He made that mistake trying to block Krippner, or trying to block Haase rather, that let Krippner through, and now he's got Caruana behind him, trying to block him as well, trying to give him only the smallest amount of room, and he succeeds because Caruana gets exceptionally oversteery, does eventually recover right in front of Marine, but that was a squeeze, and you can see Caruana getting very exasperated from that.
And Jovasakov wants to try and take advantage, already got past Marine, now tries to get past Caruana as well, who's closed the door into the penultimate couple of corners. Yeah, these drivers are fighting like there is 10 minutes to go, like they've got nothing else to lose. It's those at the front that continue to ride as they are, and with Marco Page currently doing a bit of a masterclass, you'd have to say right now. If you're watching on our Racing Prodigy YouTube chat, let us know who you think's going to come out on top, because Joey, I think Page looks pretty comfortable right now.
He looks very, very comfortable. He's critically been fast enough to make sure Ottaviani isn't in his draft range, more or less. He's getting a little bit of the draft, but you need to be about 4/10 behind or 3/10 behind to actually use the draft to close all the way to the back of the driver in front and go for a move. Ottaviani nowhere near close enough to do that. Romanidis is close enough to do that for him for second, but you see the Italian giving a little bit of a jink to the inside, just letting Michael Romanidis know, I'm not leaving the door open, you're not going to pass me just yet. And they've got a slot in line once again. Romanidis, I think, is probably thinking, I got to make this move for second, because I don't know if Ottaviani can bring this gap down to Page.
And you want to make sure you've got a couple of laps to try and get past Page as well. You can't try and pass Ottaviani on the penultimate lap. You can't pass Page on the final lap. This isn't like you're playing with AI. You're in a proper tussle. You're in a proper competition. Yes, each of the podium steps has prizes to offer. Only one of them, a trip in 50 days to Prodigy Week. Like you said, Michael Romanidis 2.0 watching over the shoulder. He is as well. You don't get the same look at the hands as we do from Ottaviani, but these drivers, as little movement as they can, and you can see how precise they are, even 23 minutes into a sprint.
Now, you mentioned that these drivers aren't AI, but they look a lot like it sometimes. It's like they're on rails. It's picture perfect, and we haven't seen a single mistake, I don't think, out of the top three, but we're starting to get into those critical moments. This race has flown by. 7 minutes to go by my calculations. That's 4 or 5 laps to go. I believe it's 4 laps to go. And this is when the pressure is felt. This is when mistakes will start to come, because this gap is not coming down, and you've only got so much time to make this move.
And one thing that we are also kind of seeing is the way that these drivers are getting out of turn 2, this run out onto this long sweeping left-hander. Different lines being taken. Romanidis a little bit tighter to the apex, trying to get onto the power early, whereas Ottaviani was a little bit wider and more willing to just run himself a tighter line through the next kink that brought them onto the straight. But it's as you were, still just building up the margin behind as well. That's the most important thing. Now 2+ seconds to Lucas Muller in 4th position. Michael Romanidis can feel there is a bit of safety net behind, but realistically at Hockenheim, with these cars, unless you're in a big battle pack like we were watching earlier, Joey, or drivers are making mistakes, there are only a few passing opportunities.
Yeah, the hairpin's the biggest one, but that gap has come down. It was 0.4 of a second for just a moment, and I think Ottaviani is watching his gap right now. He's hunting for that number. He knows how close he needs to be to use the draft to full effect. He's going to lose a little bit of it out of the stadium section, but he is closer than he's been. If he can get a good run out of these final 2 corners, you got to carry so much speed through here. He's done a fantastic job. This is the closest he's been in 2nd place, and he's going to have the full effect of the draft down the front stretch, down the 2nd straight, and all the way down the back straight.
Veloce will be watching on and loving this right now. Pejic leads Ottaviani, Romanidis still in 3rd, and with, what, less than 6 minutes to go, the lap times being in the 1:43s, we are ticking away those laps as well. Pejic with the draft at ½ a second being right at the range where it's going to start to get weaker. Ottaviani has got to hustle, and this is why Joey is so correct that this is the crucial time. A 1.1 kilometer sweep onto the brakes into the hairpin, using as much draft as possible. Here come those 2 from behind.
Alessandro was only about ½ a tenth faster than Pejic on that previous lap, but that was just enough to get it within touching distance, and it's a better exit out of the hairpin. He's still closer. He's still in the big effect of the draft range. He's there, and I think if he can stay about this close, if he can get a little bit closer even, he'll have a chance into the hairpin on the next lap, if there's not a mistake for Pejic even earlier.
Still, the battle rages on for those in the train behind Florian Hasser and Leonard Krippner. Matt Caruana still in front of Jarvis Sakov, and with Pinches once running up in 6th position for quite a while, now down in 10th spot. The pressure may be building a little bit too much, but one thing that we haven't seen as much of today, Joey, are lack of braking performance, let's say, where drivers overshoot their braking zones. We talked yesterday a lot about brake bias being moved rearwards to try and reduce the amount of front locking that increases the braking distance, but for the most part, most of these drivers have been contending with that relatively well. I wonder if they've had to slightly change up the style from yesterday, though.
That is possible. I think it also comes down to that these are all the drivers who advanced from yesterday, so it's more likely that they weren't the drivers who made those mistakes yesterday, but also they've had a ton of practice, they've had a ton of laps, and they've had a ton of time to adjust that brake bias, adjust their driving style to make sure there's none of those mistakes today.
Here we go. 3/10. Ottaviani and Pejic, the closest that they have been. With 3 minutes to go, less than 3 minutes to go next time by. I think we have 2 laps to go at the line, so 3 laps including this one. Ottaviani not close enough to send the lunge, and you'd offer that for Romanidis. Time's running out for him as well to make a 2-in-1. He's only going to be able to peel Ottaviani away from Pejic. It might be between the 2 Veloce competitors at the front.
Well, if they start running side by side, that's when Romanitas comes into this. He's not going to be able to outbreak both of them in one corner. He's not going to be able to pass them both in one fell swoop. But if they're fighting, if they're slowing each other down and a door opens, that's where Romanitas comes into the fray here. But we'll see how long does it take for Ottaviani to be able to actually make that move. It's not going to happen through the final sector. Page has been picture perfect. He's been on rails. But once we get, once again, onto that back straight, Ottaviani was only a few feet away from being able to send a dive last time. With even more pressure on the line here with 2 laps to go, he's going to start making those slightly lower percentage moves and try and make that pass.
Ottaviani got a very big moment heading through that final sector, had to balance the car, didn't lose as much ground as he could have, and as it continues to just build in this battle behind, 2 laps to go for them as well. Let's not forget they want to make their case potentially to the Prodigy Search Selection Committee. Couple of cars running wide, Krippner's down behind Caruana and Dromasekov and into 9th position. It's all as with 2 laps to go. The battle for the Prodigy Pass is very much down to 3 at the front.
Here we go, onto the back straight once again. Pretty similar gap to the previous lap, but has Ottaviani got a better exit down onto this straight this time? He's closing, and he does look, at least on my end, a little bit closer this time. We ride on board with him as he peeks to the inside. Is he going to send the dive here? He's too far back to think about it, but he is close. Page knows he's there, and on the next lap, it's not going to be a case of thinking about it. It's going to be a case of Ottaviani going for it, no matter what.
It is going to be all or nothing on this very final lap. All of the build-up, the time attack qualifiers, yesterday's semi-finals. Let's not forget Marco Page has led every single lap that he has run in this Prodigy Racing League Race Room Torches Formula 4 Cup, but still within half a car, 2 car lengths, maybe a car length and a half. The Veloce drivers run with Michael Romanidis in their tire tracks into the final sector for the penultimate time.
There's not that much dirty air in these Formula 4 cars, but there is still a little bit, and that is going to be hurting Ottaviani here through these fast corners, through these hairpins. He's trying to stick within 0.2, even 1/10 of Marco Page, but he's struggling to do so because he's getting washed out, because he's understeering, but he's about 0.3 behind. Same gap as all the previous laps. He's got one more chance.
4.5 kilometers left to go. That's all that separates one of these drivers from a trip to the Atlanta Motorsports Park. Page, Ottaviani, Romanidis, as they've been for 29.5 previous minutes. Page with a good run through turn number 1, but it's this exit from turn 2, 1.1 kilometers of draft, that will make the difference here today.
The most important corner on the track, and Ottaviani has done a great job of staying within about 0.2 there. It says 0.3 of the timing, but I think he's a little bit closer than he's been, and you can see him coming and coming and coming. Play the Jaws music. He's hunting him down, and there's going to be a dive into the hairpin here. Marco Page can't do anything about it. He's going to try and block to the inside. Just parks it in the middle of the road.
And this sets up the opportunity for Romanidis, who clatters into the right rear of Ottaviani, but only costs the Coanda Esports driver some time. Still, Ottaviani's on the back of his teammate Page and into the arena, close enough to think about a lunge, shows the nose in the mirrors, but doesn't go for it yet.
Yeah, that wouldn't have really worked. He was a little bit too far back, and there's a slide from Ottaviani there. Going to lose even more time. Was that his final chance? It may just have been, unless there's a mistake for Marco Page through the final sector. He's probably got this on lock, but Ottaviani's going to be putting on the ultimate pressure, trying to get the best exit here into the stadium section. He's going to show his nose here, I think, just to force him into a mistake, but Page is not going to be phased.
Marco Page sees the mirrors filled with a familiar face, but today was the enemy. Marco Page has led every single lap that he has run in the Prodigy Racing League Race Room Tortoise Formula 4 Cup. And the German, the Veloce driver, is going to the Atlanta Motorsports Park in 50 days' time, the winner of a Prodigy Pass. You can see what it means, the sigh of relief. The tension must have been palpable, not just for the 30 minutes today, Joey, but throughout the entirety of the weekend building up to this moment.
Get hydrated, Marco. You deserve it. He might not be showing it outwardly, but there was a lot of sweat for these 2 races. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of intensity, and it's all over for Marco Page now. One of the most one of the drivers with the most professional background, I'll say that much, in the field. So much experience, so many different varieties of sim racing esports, and he's going to get his chance in the E2Real pipeline.
Someone that grew up watching Michael Schumacher, inspired by him, was racing on the old simulators, the Grand Prix 3s, the Formula 1 Challenge 09s, and then it continued. Marko Pejic will get a chance to go racing in the real world, courtesy of a spectacular victory here, leading the Veloce 1 and 2. Alessandro Ottaviani did everything that he could, but it was not to be enough. Michael Romanidis did grab the fastest lap, but ultimately just could not do much, riding in third behind the two in front. But a podium is his, as well as prizes courtesy of our partners at Asetek and Grid and SimLab. Plenty of other drivers to talk about, but my word, as the drivers get themselves a chance to breathe, we get a chance to breathe as well. We'll grab a word with Marko in a few moments' time, but now we have confirmed the 5th different driver, Joey, heading to Prodigy Week. Boy, is that an exciting feeling.
An exciting feeling, and it's even more exciting that there's more to come. Every single time we get a new driver added to the list for Prodigy Week, it starts to get more and more stacked, and the amount of people from different backgrounds here, whether it's Marko Pejic, who's been sim racing, I think, for longer than I've been alive, whether it's Lawrence Beertens, who comes in through SK Racing, which is totally different from the world of sim racing. We're getting everybody from all walks of life in virtual racing, and they're all going to get a chance to be that next driver who succeeds in real racing after starting in the virtual world.
Well, we saw the emotion, the relief on Marko Pejic's face. Let's drag in the German and have a chat with the latest winner of a Prodigy Pass. Marko, you've just won the Prodigy Pass. You're heading to the Atlanta Motorsports Park. How are you feeling right now?
Over the moon. I'm speechless. Like, it's still the adrenaline from the race, because it was probably my hardest win ever. Ottaviani was always pushing me, and it was just quali lap after quali lap for 30 minutes, and just not able to break away. And yeah, it was, yeah.
I mean, talk to us about how you felt coming into the race. You, of course, had the semi-final yesterday where you felt a similar amount of pressure from Alessandro, I would feel, but I'm sure knowing 30 minutes and a chance to go out there and get the chance to go compete in the real world, plenty of pressure must have been weighing on your shoulders.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I knew that my pace was really good, judging from the practice times, but everyone was so close. I think we had like 6 drivers within half a tenth, and that's just ridiculous. And also, I saw from the races yesterday that you just cannot break away, because you have slipstream up to, I think, 6/10, and you just cannot make up that much time to break the toe. So everyone was just like in an oval, waiting for their moment to pounce. And yeah, I was able to kind of just be enough ahead to cover off Alessandro, and that was important, but also 1-2 for us as a team. So yeah, at Veloce. So yeah, really good.
That was a thing. I wasn't sure how much teamwork there may be between the two Veloce guys running at the front. I mean, Racing Prodigy is planning the Prodigy draft, where all of the Prodigy Pass winners who have gone out there to be evaluated might get the chance to be selected to go to be a real-world paid race driver. What would that mean to you, Marko?
It's the dream for me. Like, I always wanted to be a race car driver, so I think, if I can make it possible through sim racing, that would be the best. Like, nothing else comes close to that. It's just my lifelong dream, and I really hope it works out.
Well, it was Michael Schumacher-esque, the qualifying laps that you put in the race today. Congratulations, Marko. Can't wait to see what you'll do in Atlanta in 50 days' time.
Very excited. Thank you.
We'll go from Marko Pejic to his teammate Alessandro Ottaviani to talk about what was a pretty intense race, I feel, Alessandro. You put the pressure on, built until those final couple of laps. What more did you need to do to try and get your way into first spot, excuse me?
Yeah, it was a really, it was really, really hard to get the slipstream and try to stay in the slipstream. Marko did an amazing job. I literally gave everything, and probably the last lap was the best opportunity, but probably it was a bit too safe. But I decided to not ruin everything. So at the end, the most important thing was to gain a good result, get a good result as a team, and we did it because we did 1-2. So I'm happy about it, and yeah, he deserved the win. So he did an amazing drive, and yeah, it was really difficult as a race. It was really difficult. So, but I'm still happy, and yeah, it was a really funny race for sure, and probably the most funniest I ever had because the tension was always high, at least in the cockpit. But yeah, I'm happy, and probably I can get it next time. So let's see.
Let's not forget that we've, of course, got our Prodigy Search Selection Committee as well. So for those that are watching, talk to us about the dream. Why do you want to go out there and be a race car driver in the real world?
For sure, I'm, as everyone here, I'm a motorsport enthusiast since kid, probably. And for sure, I need a redemption from the last year because I did something like this, so Sim Racing Series to get a cockpit, but I never managed to it, and I lost for sure my chance several times. And I tried to get this chance to jump in a real cockpit car, but it wasn't my turn probably. But I hope maybe the next stage or in another opportunity for sure I will push as hard as I can, as much as I can to try to make the step forward. But I'm still happy to be here to share the track with these amazing drivers, and I hope that one day maybe I will get the same opportunity. So at the moment, I'm happy that Marco can feel that kind of emotion and sensation to drive a real car. So I wish the best for him at the Prodigy Week, and let's see, maybe I will go through, or I don't know. So let's see what will happen.
Well, congratulations on a great drive, Alessandro. And your second place comes with an Aztec Invicta brake and throttle pedal set as well. So you'll be getting that in the mail. Congratulations. Can't wait to see you in more Racing Prodigy events.
Thank you, guys.
One final chat before we wrap things up. We'll have a word with Michael Romanidis, the Coanda eSport driver. Michael, semi-finals yesterday. You talked to us about not feeling maybe 100% with the sim. Talk to us about today and how you feel things went.
I feel we were pretty stale for about 29 minutes of that race. I think one big mistake was just the start. I didn't really have any experience in the dirt yet through turn 1, so I lifted just a little bit. And I think Alessandro basically made it flat in P3 behind me. And then she went straight for the move in turn 2. I didn't really want to fight it too much. I was just kind of having my eyes on Marco in P1. But yeah, quickly I realized that it was all down to Alessandro basically whether I could have a chance for the win. And yeah, for the rest of the race I tried to stay behind basically because I felt like the only chance we had. Also because every time I got a little bit close to him into the hairpin, he was defending, so I could see there was no chance of me going past without losing too much time, which would be the end of I hope both of our targets was to win that race. But yeah, I think in the end, Marco deserved it. He was so rapid, on a field which was so close. He was just a little bit outstanding, about half a tenth, I would say, maybe more every lap. So, and that was essentially what made us pull away as a group in the top 3. So, he deserved it. I felt like there was a couple of chances, but I also didn't realize that they're actually teammates. So I would have maybe played it a little bit different had I known that, but in the end, P3 is okay, and hopefully there's more chances.
You still got a chance to register and qualify your way into the next Racing Prodigy event on R Factor 2. Any chance that we'll see you competing there as well?
Not really. I definitely want to have a bit of a break, especially right now, if you ask me. But maybe there's a chance for the survey thing. I'm not sure, but in terms of racing, I want to relax a little bit, and there's also some stuff with the team which are actually a bit of a priority than this thing. So, but yeah, hopefully at some point, as the guy said, it would be a dream. So I'll keep fighting for it, and hopefully one day happens.
Well, congratulations, Michael. Great to see you as part of 3 of our individual Prodigy Racing League tournaments, and can't wait to see you hopefully in the future as well.
Thank you very much.
Always great to have a chat there with our podium finishers today. Michael also wins a SimLab GT1 Pro Sim Racing cockpit. So not just the winner getting the Prodigy pass, but there's some, I guess, I don't want to call them consolation prizes, Joey, for the rest. But you could hear the clear dejectment while at the same time hearing the excitement from Marco, who they rightfully congratulated as the best driver of the tournament.
And yeah, you heard what Marco said. He said it's been his dream for his whole life to be a real-life race car driver, to go into the real world, and he's going to get that chance to do so for the first time. And I hope that everybody who is in the real world of motorsports sees that Marco Page has quite the resume in sim racing. He's had quite the race here, and if you want to hire a guy to drive your car fast, he's more than likely going to be one of those guys to do it. But we'll see both of those drivers on the podium again, I think. Maybe not immediately, like Michael Romanidis said. He needs a little bit of a break, but they'll definitely have a chance to also make those steps on the E2Real pipeline. And I think for the next event, I'm going to do the bleached blonde like Michael Romanidis too. I'm going to fit in.
We'll see how that goes. Let's not forget, like I mentioned, racingprodigy.com. Sign-ups are still open. You can register for free to take part on the very first Prodigy Racing League tournament on R Factor 2. Sign-ups close on September the 15th, and we're racing the weekend after that, so not far away from diving into the action. And Joey, that's going to be a lot of fun as well, because like I said at the very start, we are 50 days away from the start of Prodigy Week.
Pretty incredible. 50 days, that's less than 10 weeks. I am no mathematician. I can't tell you how many weeks that is exactly, but it's coming. We can see it, and there's only going to be a few more drivers who get that chance, so got a couple more days to do it, and I can't wait to see how it ends up, how that week ends up going.
5 drivers now locked in and confirmed, but still some time for you to join the fun. Don't forget, if you're watching us on Racing Prodigy's YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay around for all the action, including the next Prodigy Cert Selection show, the results of the iRacing Formula 1600 tournament coming up very soon. Don't forget as well, social media is the place to be to stay up to date with everything Racing Prodigy related on our run-up towards Prodigy Week. For the team behind the scenes, for everyone at RaceSpotTV, for Connery Maddock producing today's action, and Joey Tebben alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, but for now, it's Marco Page being sent off to the Atlanta Motorsports Park, the latest winner of a Prodigy Pass.